Wow, what a link up. Misan and Kieran in the Steve's Factory, you know. Misan is a friend of mine. He's a photographer, he's an activist, he's a filmmaker. He wears the best hoodies in London. Kieran, we've never parred, but I've seen him from afar. I rate what he does, and it's a joy to be here together. Walk Weezy. Blessings and abundance.
What's up, man?
Are we keeping? Kieran, how do you know about me, bro?
How do I know about you?
Yeah, tell me the stories.
So, back in the day, I mean, I say back in the day, only 2-3 years ago, up until pretty recently, I got mates based in Sheffield. Shout out to George and Sam. I said I would shout out to them. And they would take me to your raves.
Probably Cabal. There's a party in Sheffield,
yeah.
Cabal, yeah.
And so we would, sort of dance the night away there, and I'd see you up in the DJ booth, and on many occasions I thought I'm going to stagger over and say hello to him, but I didn't do it.
Well, it's a blessing, man, because you never know when you play music who the tribe is around you, because it's dark, it's fun. So when you messaged me about that, I was really touched, because I rate what you do so much. You're part of No Vira Media.
That's right.
With our friend Ash Sarkar. But one of the things that I admire so much in you is getting on a boat to go frontline. Now, just explain a bit about exactly what that was, who was it, etc. Because I know, but certain people might not.
Well, first of all, let me say part of the reason I messaged you, Toddler, was because you put your head above the parapet. I know in the music industry, other industries, it's difficult sometimes to speak out. As that, of course, you as well, the way that you both speak out about Palestine and about the plight of Palestinians, it is a commonplace, unfortunately. It's becoming more widespread, but it's not commonplace, and it's a risk. It's a real risk, so I'm grateful to both of you. Flotilla. So I was getting fed up of not doing enough. And there is no such thing as enough when there's a genocide happening in 4K, right? There's no such thing as enough when, as in my case, by some quirk of personal history, I'm born here and I have a relatively privileged life, but my brother, my sisters, my dad, they're in Palestine, they're Palestinian, and all manner of intergenerational violence is inflicted upon them as a result of that. And so I started to feel like I wasn't doing anything like enough to try and address what, as I say, was a genocide in front of all of our eyes in 4K. And so I decided that I needed to do the maximum that I could do, and in the end, I landed on going on the flotilla as a way of doing that. That was a method that I felt was some small down payment towards, the debt that I owe the Palestinian people and to my own family as well. They don't see it like that. They don't say to me, Kieran, you owe us a debt because you were born in a safe, secure place, and we were. They never say that to me. They just tell me that they're proud, which is a beautiful thing. And I'm very grateful to them. But I felt very intensely that, it's great being in a television studio. It's great writing things. I'm lucky to have something of a platform, but it didn't feel sufficient to me. So yeah, I went on the flotilla, and it was, you were there, you were in Barcelona with us when we set off.
Yeah.
And the atmosphere was, it was extremely moving. It was a kind of thick atmosphere of humanity. If I could describe it in any way, it would be that everybody had turned out for to see us off, and off we went on the boats. And it was a very arduous journey. There were lots of logistical and technical setbacks along the way. And then, of course, we were kidnapped to the international waters. And then, of course, we were taken to a prison in the Negev desert in the south of occupied Palestine, sometimes called Israel. And it was a nightmarish experience in some ways, but I don't regret it at all. And I'm very, very glad that I got to do it. And I can't keep going back, can't keep doing it, because I'm in a different category to other people, half Palestinian. They didn't seem to find out this time.
I was going to ask if they knew.
I think they were really overwhelmed by the number of people on this mission. It was larger than any mission ever before.
How many people got on the boats in total, do we know?
Yeah, so it was something like 480 people.
Incredible.
Roughly 480.
All setting off from Barcelona, or you picking up on the way?
Picked up some people along the way.
Yeah.
Picked up some people in Tunisia. But from Barcelona, I'd say the vast majority set off from there. And we picked up more people in Tunisia. Off we went, across the Mediterranean. There were setbacks. I mean, there were some questions to be asked about the organisation, but it's a civil society mission. So we don't have the resources of big NGOs or government.
Or a navy.
Or a navy, exactly.
And I mean, on that day, I remember seeing Spanish grandmothers come out of church near the port with their pearls on, their Sunday, really dressed nice, and with a keffir on. And I realized, that the history of the, Catalan resistance is so tied to your people's sense of resistance that by 8 a.m. there were thousands of people. And there's something about ports, about goodbyes, about going into open water and not knowing what you're going to meet that is deeply, deeply sort of emotional. And, I wanted to ask you this, when you were kidnapped, when you finally met the men and some women that hold the guns of occupation, what did you make of them,
So we were chronically sleep deprived. It'd been about a month at sea. You get about 3 hours sleep a night, roughly, and at most. And when I say sleep, I mean lying across people's legs and whatever else. And then we get there, and by the time we know that they're going to intercept, which is to say, climb on board the boat in international waters, so illegally intercept or kidnap, I'm extremely weary. We're all extremely dazed, and it's kind of like you're in this constant haze state of mind. So it doesn't feel real. I think that's the first thing to say. I felt at that moment in time very calm. That's not to showboat or anything. I think it would have been perfectly legitimate to be anxious or scared. And I think under other circumstances, I could have been. But I think the sleep deprivation, maybe ironically or counterintuitively, actually helped.
Yeah.
I think it actually helped. I felt like I was in a haze-like state. And so I was relatively calm when they boarded. But of course, to the nub of your question, I was staring at the faces of these people. And I was thinking, they had masks on, but I could see their eyes. They're all holding machine guns and shotguns and whatever else. There was about 15, 20 of them boarded the boat. We were all sat around with our hands up. We'd already gone through the safety protocols, and that was, what we decided we had to do. And I was looking in their eyes, and I was thinking, you people are part of a genocidal army. Your army, and this was the S-13 unit, right? The S-13 unit, Shirat 13, which is a elite naval unit, elite naval commandos. They have been involved in every single war crime that Israel's ever committed, these guys. They go back to 48 when the state was founded. They're, you look through the history, they're there, whether it's 67, whatever it is, they're there. And they've been very, very active in the Gaza genocide since October 7th, 2023. And so, I was looking through past the mask to the eyes, and I was thinking, you're human, I'm human, and yet I know that you're part of an army that uses children's genitals for target practice. I don't understand. I don't get it. I do not understand. In every other way, your shape, your whatever, the way you're talking, you're human, and yet I know that you do that.
Yeah.
There's some gap in logic there that I can't bridge. I can't bridge it. And so, that was the stuff that was going on in my head. But then, of course, externally, we were all very kind of, we were abiding by everything they were asking us to do because they had the big guns and we didn't. So, they kind of made us file down into the basement of the boat and sit there for hours, and they took us to the ports. One of them would guard us through the night because it took about 15 hours to get to the port of Ashdod, which is north of Gaza. They would ask us, anybody need the toilet? It was standard stuff. But it was when we got to occupied Palestine, it was when we got to Ashdod that they started to turn really nasty, the police officers. And I got off the boat and I walked around the corner and I saw hundreds of people that had been on the flotilla with me that I hadn't seen for a long time because we were on separate boats, with their hands behind their backs and then on their knees facing down. And I know because a friend of mine who's from London but was on the flotilla, he said to me, when he saw that, he thought we were being executed. I didn't think that, actually. I have to admit, I didn't think that. I thought, okay, they're just humiliating us. They're going to take us to prison and who knows. But he thought that people were being executed when he first saw that this was it. And then Itamar Ben-Gvir,
He turned up, didn't
the Zion fascist, he turned up.
Fucking hell.
And he walked around us, you know, like trying to humiliate us. And it was obviously, actually, to be honest with you, it was that moment that I started to relax more because I thought, okay, it's a publicity stunt.
he? It's theatre.
It's theatre. It's theatre. And he'd said, we are going to charge them under terrorists. You know, they're terrorists, they're Hamas, they're coming here. I mean, nothing could have been further from the truth. When we were close to interception, we threw our fucking, am I allowed to swear?
Swear, fucking swear.
Okay. We threw our fucking knives and forks, and it's not very environmentally friendly, I'm afraid, but we had to do it. We threw our fucking knives and forks in the sea because we knew that they could seize those and say, look, see, Hamas weapons, right? So that's how under Hamas we were, that's how peaceful we were. And yet he was saying, we're going to charge them under terror, you know, blah, 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 they'll be in prison for 10 years. We're going to put them in a terror prison and so on. It was all political theatre. But they did take us to Ketsiot prison. And some people were there for up to 7 days. I was there for 2 days. I was fortunate in that way. It was just random, really. But when I was in that prison, just as an aside, I worked out, and it took me a while to work out, and I'm going to blame the sleep deprivation, but I worked out that it was the same prison that my younger brother had been taken to years earlier and tortured him years earlier. Yeah.
So how was that? Like, obviously you've not slept. Presuming they're not giving you much food or like tools of happiness. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So our phones went in the sea when we were intercepted, so that there's no, so it's totally cut off. We knew that. We're then taken to the port of process. We're taken on a prison bus to Ketsiot. The food was barely any food, crawling with ants, crawling with insects. It was like rotten vegetables crawling with insects. We got that. I was there 2 days. I got 2 portions of that. But the really offensive thing, some people were on hunger strike anyway. I wasn't. The really offensive thing was that they threw away people's critical medicine, including, there was an old guy, a retired civil servant. He was in his mid-70s, and he was saying, I have a heart condition. And they laughed and threw his heart medication in the bin. Somebody was HIV positive. They needed their meds, lobbed in the bin, laughed at. EpiPens. Like, they just, it's a violation of several tenets of the Geneva Convention, but they didn't. And we're privileged compared to Palestinians. I mean, they know that we're French, British, Italian, whatever, citizens. So they know that there's a limit to what they can do to us, but they still push that limit. And they sexually assaulted some of the women from the flotilla. They were, pulling hair and punching, but that I kind of expected that. And they didn't give us any clean water. So we were in the desert. And even on October 1st, in the desert, it's still pretty fucking warm. And we were in these corrugated iron cells, so it was like absorbing the heat, certainly not keeping it out very effectively. And they were denying us water. So we were having to drink water out of a tap in the toilet, next to the toilet, that was spewing out brown water. We had no choice but to drink that. But again, if they're willing to do that to us, imagine what they do behind closed doors and in the dark to Palestinians.
Well, you were saying you have Palestinian heritage, right?
Yeah, I'm half Palestinian.
So, and they didn't find that out, right? And do you think if they found out, it might have been a different situation?
I don't actually know, but I suspect quite strongly that had they found out, I think the consequences would have been on my family.
Right.
Right. So my dad and his 6 children other than me all live in East Jerusalem. And my great fear was not so much about myself. I mean, obviously I didn't want to, I didn't want to be martyred. I don't want to die. But you know when you go on a mission like that there's a risk that something like that could happen. And you have to be aware of that. Otherwise, what are you doing there? So my great fear was for my family, was that they would have the technology to work out who I was, who they were. I'm online talking about them here and there as well. So I thought, you know, they can probably piece it together, maybe. And my great fear was that they would, you know, knock on the door and
Do what they do.
do what they do. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, they're going back on the 29th, the flotilla.
That's right. That's right. Can I ask you both how you first arrived at consciousness about Palestine, and like what led you into the Palestine activism that you do now?
I mean, my father has been active for years, but when I was younger, I was just like, oh, music, partying, you know, trying to chase a female. And it was like, because being dragged around, protesters from young apartheid was big in our house. And it was this conscious stroke subconscious. And my dad, he's been stood outside Sheffield train station for as long as I can remember, every Friday. And he's one of my heroes, but I didn't really kind of engage in it because it was just so normal for him to be doing some sort of activism, anti-establishment behaviour. Like he'll go in M&S and take out the prunes or whatever, you know, like that part. Like he's frontline, he's amazing, but it's just all dad. But I think it was for me because I've said this many a times, it's a bit of a broken record, because I work with kneecaps so closely, and we made the album in this particular room, and I got to know these humans and who they were and where they came from, and we made this art together. And off they went to then, you know, promote the art and become these rock stars. And then they went to Coachella and said what they said, and I saw three of my brothers literally from somewhere or somehow someone go nope, and I was like, wow, this is real. Because obviously I haven't got family ties, I haven't got direct, but then I saw the effect of going against the Israeli agenda in fruition. And it was like, I've seen micro stuff before in society with different communities, but this was like, whoa. So I thought, let me look behind the curtain a bit more. And the more I delved in, and the more I realized, as Misan said before, it's the litmus test of our time. And it represents so much more than actually the two states or whatever. And I just felt really strong about it. And to be honest with you, after that, so many of my colleagues were scared of what that repercussion had been for them, that I would have conversations like this in the private, but when it went public, they would just felt really muted. So I was like, you know what, I'm not tied to any label, management, agency, brand deals. Fuck it, let's go. Because if I can't be the vessel for why am I here? Why is my dad outside the train station?
Wonderful.
Why do I make music that's inspired by repression? And like, I have to front it. And it's like anything, the more you discover it, the more you realize how it's so evil and how it represents more than the actual capsule. And it was just important for me to be a vessel for those who were around me that were muted. And that's why I keep going back to it, because like Misan said to me before, it represents so much more. It's, you know, it's ICE, it's Trump, it's Sudan, it's...
Certainly all tied together.
We go on and on and on. And what's fascinating about it is, obviously I've had backlash, I've had calls, emails, all that bollocks, but the tribe I've found has made me feel really secure. So, you too. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I think of the fact that I've been celebrated for my voice, the work I do in the prison community, the work I do for brown and black lives, the queer and trans community, climate action. Oh, Misan, we love you. My Vogue cover obviously was you know, a historic moment for folks that look like me. So all this celebration, and then I'm global ambassador for Save the Children, who have been in Palestine since the 60s. And I had access to data points many people didn't. So of course I was going to speak. The moment I spoke, I had the kind of reaction I'd never seen before.
Right.
And it's important I say this. I risk nothing when I speak about Congo, Sudan, Yemen, Iran. I risk nothing. If I whisper about Palestine, I risk everything. I don't think I've said this before, so I'll give you an exclusive. So I have been one of the top photographers, not for protests, everyone knows my protest work, but for shooting very famous people. And what happens is every year, a lot of the celebrities and talent are like, it's got to be Misan, no one else. So I was being hired by everyone. You just, you name it, shooting Angelina Jolie on the roof of the Corinthia Hotel, just shooting lots of very, very famous people. And after October 2023, after my first, I think I walked to 10 Downing Street with Christian Aid, Oxfam, and I was the only high profile person, so I had to do the speech because all of the other bloody ambassadors didn't turn up or wouldn't turn up. So I did the speech begging for this thing to stop now. I think Rishi Sunak was Prime Minister then. From that moment on, I think I would get 2 to 3 jobs a month before October 2023, shooting in Cannes, all over the place. Switch just went off, right? And literally, for 18 months, not one booking to shoot the very talent that want me. The very talent that want me. And I realize that we're dealing with something completely unique. So that's just one of the things that happened to me. But to answer your question, why Palestine? Because Palestine is a source code of empire, right? If you have billionaires calling up every aspect of your life trying to destroy you, that's the root cause for it. So it allows you to go on a journey of unlearning, to realize that if Palestine is free, it will liberate every aspect of this neo-colonial, hyper-extractive, patriarchal hegemony that allows children to be sniped in their private parts, buried alive, that allows mothers to have to pick up the pieces of their children so they don't get eaten by dogs, that allows every university, every school to be destroyed. And when we say this may be wrong, we are the ones that are called terrorists, right? So how can you ignore that? And it goes back to a video I did a few days ago that went all viral about the Grammys. It is safe for the liberal West to speak on things like even ice.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
And respect to many of the artists, I adore many of them, and they spoke about immigration and fuck ice, but not one person in the whole Grammys on the winner's stage spoke about
Gaza. And I'm so glad you said that, because it would have meant so much if somebody had stood up and said, you cannot say fuck ICE without saying fuck Israel or fuck the IDF as well, because there are so many interconnections, right? Whether it's Palantir partnering with Israel and with ICE, whether it's the IDF and the Israeli police
Cop City
training, different police forces around the world, and ICE and others, or there being knowledge sharing, cross-pollination, cross-funding, all sorts of things. There are so many connections. Or whether it's the methods being trialed in Gaza, Gaza being a laboratory of cruelty, and then that being rolled out elsewhere once it's tried and tested, it being like the focus group almost, the terror focus group. There are so many links between ICE, so many links with Gaza, and so many links with other atrocities and injustices being committed around the world. And you're right, the source code of empire in so many ways. And so God love, I'm going to say something which, I don't know, I love Billie Eilish. And I love those artists for saying fuck ICE, good on them. But it would have meant so much to link it, to say you cannot say fuck ICE without also saying fuck what's going on in Gaza, you know?
Yeah, and the idea, I'll give you a pass that the fact that you still will have brand deals with companies that are holding up empire. You'll still work with fashion labels that have child slavery all over it, right? You will still back up the tech companies that are having black boys being crushed in Congo. So if you're going to still do that, right?
Yeah.
If you get 2 minutes on stage,
You're the Manchurian candidate. Go up there and break things.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is our job to do so. Your privilege is who you are and who you are, right? It is your job
to do what you're doing. And when I see friends that we all have, and this is my issue, you know, I was just talking about, you know, when the honors came out in January, many people that I know that are more excited to go to Buckingham Palace to kneel than to be the voice to babies that are rotting in incubators is not something I will ever accept.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a very trialing, testing couple of years in so many senses. The defrosting of it all.
Yeah, for sure.
And as I said earlier to you, it's like, it's uncomfortable, it's horrible to watch, but I think it's a necessary era.
It is, and I think I want to relate to both what you both said into one single observation, which is that for a long time, Israel could rely on its image as a romantic and idealistic place. It really could.
Yeah, for sure.
Artists, the left, even some elements of the radical left, the left, liberals, conservatives, the world over there was a reason to love Israel as far as they were concerned. And the Palestinians were invisible, or they were only visible in nightmares. You know, the kidnapping of the Munich Olympians and so on. That was how those were the filters of consciousness that people had about Palestinians for a very long time. That started to change in the early 1980s. It changed rapidly in the 2000s. It changed because of the logic of Zionism, which is to colonize all of the land, and that requires lots of violence. It changed because of social media. Social media's got a million ills.
Yeah.
But one thing it has done is it's allowed Palestinians to document their own subjugation in real time. It's allowed them to document that horror unfiltered, without the middleman or woman of the mainstream media. And that means that Israel has had to pivot. It's had to switch gear.
And by TikTok.
And by TikTok. So it's had to switch from the dream factory, you know, Hollywood in Tel Aviv, you know, all of these projections of a liberal idealistic place in a rogue neighborhood. And it's what it's done is it's reallocated so many of those resources. You know that Israel, when it built its dream factory, it's kind of like Hasbara machine, propaganda machine. It allocated as much money to that for about 20 years as it did to its secret nuclear program. That's how much they cared
It's
about
that
the
important.
world loving Israel. And that's how much they cared about image. And that those resources that were once there have gradually drained away, and they've been reallocated to a beefed up international Israel lobby,
Yep.
which means that you don't get as many calls after you start speaking up after October 7th.
No.
Because those billionaires that you talked about, and those powerful people making those phone calls, they're
Yeah.
part of that extended network of people. It's highly organized, and it's very, very powerful. And it actually didn't used to exist to the same degree because it didn't have to. They could rely on image.
Well, I can't name any names, but I was having lunch with one of the greatest film actors in the world who loves my work. And we were talking
Oh, please
about
name names.
Palestine. And this is the thing. Every major actor has a publicist, right?
Yeah.
Right? And a manager.
Right.
Many of the top ones, their publicists are ethno-supremacists and massively Islamophobic.
Right.
It's just straight up. And he was getting emotional over his lunch, and he was like, yeah. And I was telling him that, you know, students, we're talking about the encampments. And I said, students have never been on the wrong side of history. They just never have. And this generation are more on the right side of history than ever before. And then his publicist just came straight in. He goes, remember what I was telling you? That they're Hamas and they've been brainwashed by TikTok.
Yeah.
And I was just watching this thing in real time.
Wow.
You know, it works in real time.
Yeah, fact.
And speaking of bots and trolls, I've been photographing the pro-Palestine Jewish community for the last 2 years. Extraordinary human beings, you know, from the Jewish bloc to Namod, amazing men, women, and children that have decided to build bridges and some kind of future that has humanity in it. Because my reach has got so nuts online, every time I post a picture of a Jewish person in solidarity with Palestinians, I get the bots say AI. AI.
Oh,
AI,
I've seen it,
AI.
yeah.
And
I've actually seen it, yeah.
It's really focused. And initially I was like, but they don't ever say AI about my pictures of anyone else. And I've realized that this is such a concern to have Jewish people in solidarity with the Palestine movement that they don't know what else to say, but they're going to tell you it's fake. Now, we will laugh at that because we're at the protest with them. But there are people on Facebook that will see that. So, yeah, it is AI.
Yeah.
And they'll share it to their own little network, which is why I had to call it out.
Yeah.
When they, you're absolutely right. And when that goes, if that goes, when it goes, international Jewish support for Israel, which is certainly diminished over the past 20, 30 years, then the game is over. And that's why they have to do that. You know, Taglit Birthright. Have you heard of the Birthright program?
No, what's that?
Yeah, Aliyah.
Basically, anybody with a single grandparent or maybe even a great grandparent that's Jewish can get free tourism to Israel.
Oh, yeah, I've heard
they
of it,
can
yeah.
be taken there, they can be shown around, and it's all free, and it's paid for, and it's part of the program called Taglit Birthright. And I've actually been over there visiting my family secretly because whenever I go in, I have to pretend to be a dumb British tourist going clubbing in Tel Aviv or something in order to get in.
Right.
But whenever I'm over there, I see them. I see pockets of birthwriters being shown around Jerusalem. And that's why, because you know that was part of the reproducing of the kind of Zionist idealism. Is like, we need to make sure every generation of Jews believes in Israel. As soon as that starts to drain away, it's over. And so how do we do that? Well, one method is we give them this incredible deal where they get to travel across from wherever they are to, so they get to see it, they get to go everywhere. They go to a tomb of King David, they go to wherever they want in the country.
And you can have your first kiss there.
You can have your first.
It's very
exactly.
romanticized.
Yeah.
Everyone listening should watch Israelism with
right,
Simone Zimmerman, which talks about this in great detail. It's really, really well done. And it's part of the machinery, you know, from music as well, film. We've spoken about this before, but it's important for people to understand what's going on. From as early on as Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, right? The Arab man and woman has been reduced to either, you know, a rich fool or a violent terrorist. And, you know, the co-opting of black culture is something that I keep researching and I'm amazed by. And I remember, I'm 48, I'm old enough to remember a song with Busta Rhymes in called Arab Money, right? Watch that video.
Wow.
And how the Arab man is seen, and it's a who's who in hip hop is that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying Busta and you know, the artists even understood what they were doing.
Yeah, it's time.
But the folks that own the labels
Yeah.
that do really, really understand that let's keep the Arab man there. And then you look at when Neo Soul, some of the best music of a generation was able to fill out stadiums, right? So people like Dwele,
Yeah.
Music Soul Child,
yeah.
Jill Scott.
Oh, incredible, yeah.
At the peak of their powers, all the funding went. All the funding went, and you know, mumble rap, Future,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, Nicki Minaj, look where she is now.
Exactly.
All the money went into this
Yeah.
this kind of reductive part
Lower
of black
vibration.
culture.
I call that music lower vibration.
But it's very, very planned. And you look at the heads of the record labels and their idealistic view of ethno-supremacy
Yeah.
and using black culture, this
Yeah.
is a really important point,
Definitely.
to keep us dumbed down.
Yeah.
And there are very, very few black artists or athletes. You've got Kyrie Irving, you've got Saul Williams. They're not that many that have stepped outside to really, really have a voice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I see the pyramid scheme in music all the time. It's one of the reasons I set this up. I couldn't do it.
Right.
And it's so transparent. Like you see it literally like skin tone wise, but you see it class wise, you see it accent wise. Further you climb up that pyramid, the more it gets like that. And the bottom of the pyramid, as you call it, the black kids from the estate, like the more oppressed working class, like they're providing all the art that they're rinsing, chucking on, moving on. But the minute it gets remotely like what they don't want, they're just on to the next, do you know what I mean? And yeah, that's a prime example of the neo soul theme. Look, next, mumble, no deal, please. Yeah, it's awful.
Violence, you know, we want the words, we want misogynoir, we want, you know, the hyper sexualization of the black woman. You know, this movie that's been nominated for 1 billion Oscars, I have a real problem with one battle after another because,
I hate that.
you know, as a black man watching it in the cinema, I was like,
Yeah, what the fuck?
this is a male, very white, conservative gaze. Her name is some ridiculous Perfuda Beverly Hills. It's a kind of name when you're making fun of black people, you make a name like that, and then she is non-maternal.
Right.
She's hypersexualized and she's ultra violent.
Right.
And if you think what black women have had to do to win Oscars in the past, you look at Halle Berry in Monsters Ball. You look at The Help. Right. You look at you've either been something that's a comfortable gaze, but nothing that shows, you know, the erudite class of a revolutionary woman. If you look at black female revolutionaries, they are the opposite of ultra violent, of non-maternal. Yet this is what we're being asked to receive and celebrate.
That film, I'm really glad you said that. That film is so overrated. It's bullshit. And actually, yeah, it's all about Marty Supreme and Hamnet. If they don't pip that film to the post, then something will have seriously gone wrong. But the Oscars is full of shit anyway. We know that. But yeah, I thought it was trash, utter trash. And stepping away from the music thing, but relating it to black culture, it's a shame because, like you said, source code of empire, and it makes sense then to me that I learned as much about Palestine, or at least I was able to articulate how I felt, my rage, my despair about Palestine. I learned just as much of that syntax from James Baldwin and from Malcolm X as I did from Ghassan Kafani, Leila Khaled, and Edward Said. You know, and that's.
Yep.
So when they know Busta Rhymes might have been prey to higher forces, but when they, you know, when people who have suffered colonialism, colonial racism, imperialism, either in the heartland or in the periphery, when they do know, we have this common language, this kind of lingua franca, which even if you don't speak the same language formally, you're able to relate.
Well, this is why they keep assassinating any black voices that do that.
Right.
And you look at Muhammad Ali again, very, very pro Palestine.
One of my all-time heroes.
And the children of empire, which we are, you know, as Palestinians and Nigerians, we must be able to tie the two together. Yeah. Nigeria was named by one woman. Such is the power of empire, the empire in which the sun never set, Nigeria, right? And it is a uniquely British problem, Palestine, going back as far as the Peel Commission, Balfour. And, you know, what I love about the film Palestine 36 is that it doesn't actually talk about Zionism so much. It focuses on what the British did. And there is real anti-Semitism in the Palestine project because the Americans and the British didn't want the Jews, right? And they wanted to find a place to put. It was very, very interesting. No one talks about the actual anti-Semitism that was, you know, thrown upon Jewish people that needed to find a place to go to. And the other thing I'll say is the white supremacy. I keep using this term on how Arabs were seen in the region. The dog in the manger quote, and I always repeat it every time I have a camera on me, and I'll paraphrase. And it was Churchill writing to Lloyd George before Israel existed, and he said, you know, the dog should remain. It doesn't always have to remain in the manger if we can find a higher grade race, to replace, like we did for the red man of the Americas.
Right, there you go.
Right, and the brown man of the Australias. When speaking about the 80% Palestinians that lived in historic Palestine, that lives very well, sometimes intermarrying with the 10% Jews and 10% Christians in the region.
There was one Jewish member of Lloyd George's cabinet when the Balfour Declaration was passed in 1917. It wasn't passed. Well, it was made in 1917. It was called Edwin Montagu, and he was opposed to the Balfour Declaration. The only Jewish member of that cabinet was opposed to it for precisely the reasons that transpired, and said, you're taking somebody else's land. It's already occupied by people who have lived there for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And this speaks to your point a moment ago, this isn't really about giving the Jews a homeland. This is about expelling them. This is about solving the Jewish problem here. And that's why there was such an incredible, and I'm looking into it at the moment because I'm writing something about it, but the harmony between European anti-Semites, usually the ruling class, so very actually a pervasive pan-European ruling class pathology anti-Semitism, particularly in the early 20th century. The harmony between those guys and the kind of Chaim Weissmans, who later became Israel's first president, and the Walter Rothschilds and so on, who were advocating for Jews to be drawn out of Europe and put in this place called Palestine, is astonishing. It's remarkable how much they had in common. And it's recorded in the minutes of their meetings, and it's evident in the public statements that they made. Arthur Balfour, who gives his name to the Balfour Declaration, 12 years earlier in 1905, he was Home Secretary when the first anti-immigration legislation was passed in this country. This country's first ever formal anti-immigration legislation was called the Alien Act of 1905. It was passed to stop Jewish migration from the Russian Empire, the collapsing Russian Empire. It was designed to put up the walls to stop, as they were seen, wretched Jewish migrants coming from the collapsing Russian Empire where anti-Semitism was really rife. Arthur Balfour was instrumental in drafting and passing that legislation. This guy was not a friend of the Jews. No. He was doing that because he wanted to solve the Jewish problem. And he wanted to do it in territory that he and Churchill and the rest of the British ruling class thought belonged to savages. So what do they care?
I think that's the thing as well that we all get, or I get a lot, is like, oh, why is it England's problem? Can't we sort out the back door before it? Well, actually, I think those lines in the sand were drawn by an Englishman against a lot of people's agreement. And I think we can go deeper into that another time. But listen, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Levels,
Thank you for having
always
us.
inspired, always kind of aligned and brought central when I'm around yourself and now yourself.
Before we finish, I have to say something really important because the press isn't talking about it. As I said earlier, I'm global ambassador for Save the Children, and I do speak a lot about Palestine, but this is not about Palestine. This is about the greatest potential loss of life on the planet, and that's in Sudan. So the IPC, the organization that figures out when a nation reaches famine level, the IPC released numbers yesterday, and I did an urgent video to say that you have two levels. You've got, acute malnutrition, which is really bad. And you've got severe acute malnutrition, which is you're going to die if you don't do something now. At acute malnutrition, this year it will reach 4.2 million people in Sudan, right? That's acute malnutrition. At severe acute malnutrition, it's going to reach 800,000 people. Now, this isn't like Iran where you can't get in or out. This is not like occupied Palestine where you can't get in or out. We can fix this now. I repeat, 800,000 people will die if we don't do something about it in Sudan. And when I speak to my fancy friends in BBC Sky News, it's tumbleweeds. Sudan has a potential biggest loss of life in a generation, and we can do something about it. So please, anyone that watches this, be a fucking voice for Sudan. And when you say you don't know what to do, I'll tell you what to do. Speak to elected officials, speak in WhatsApp groups, speak to work colleagues, post like a crazy person, repost about Sudan. It doesn't take anything away from anything else that's happening in the world, but their voices are not heard. So let's be their voice.
And it's linked, British Empire,
Of course.
the common denominator of Gaza, as well as others.
There you go.